booktube, welcome back to my channel. Today we're here to talk about nonfiction. It's almost November, and nonfiction here on booktube is Nonfiction November. There's a readathon that is hosted by a book Olive, and other YouTubers join her from time to time. I'm not sure of all the hosts, but I'll link them in the description box down below. The challenge for Nonfiction November is to read more nonfiction than you usually do. And for me, I read probably a lot more fiction than nonfiction, especially in recent years. So I'd like to read more nonfiction. This year, almost as an anomaly, I've read a lot of nonfiction, but I'm still not going to be reading exclusively nonfiction in November just because I have other reading plans. There are novels that I want to read for pleasure, but also because I review books for publishers, and sometimes I have reviews that are scheduled. So I'm going to be reading, not exclusively, but a lot of nonfiction. And I thought that if you are looking for recommendations for nonfiction, if you haven't been reading a lot of nonfiction and you're not sure what to pick up because you've heard or you thought that nonfiction was scholarly or pedantic or exhausting or inapproachable, unapproachable for whatever reason, and you're looking for recommendations, then before I tell you what books I'm planning to read, I'm going to give you a little list of books that I have read and enjoyed this year or in the recent past, nonfiction books that I think you would love. The hosts for the Nonfiction November Challenge have shared 4 words as prompts, and they're inviting you to match your reading with those 4 words in theme or topic or contrast in whatever way. And of course, this is optional, but I'm going to try to incorporate those 4 words in the recommendations that I give you. So the 4 words are time, movement, buzz, and discovery. And you can interpret those in any way you want to. So as I tell you my recommendations, I'll also give you some idea of which prompt they might fit with. So the first book I'm going to share as a recommendation is The Yellow House by Sarah M. Broom. And this actually won the National Book Award this year. This is Sarah M. Broom's memoir. She grew up in New Orleans, and this is a memoir of her family and their family home and the loss of their family home during Hurricane Katrina and just what the hurricane meant for this woman and her family. It is a beautifully written memoir, and aside from it just being like the memoir of a family and a place, it is also so exquisitely written that you could read this just whether or not you have interest in the subject and really enjoy this. So I think that this would meet the prompt of movement just because we see how this family moves over time, but we also see time being represented. So I think this one would match both time and movement if you're looking for a reason to pick this one up. I also really enjoy The Splendid and the Vile by Erik Larson. This was my first time reading anything by this author. He is a nonfiction writer. This one is a biography of Winston Churchill specifically as it relates to his first year as Prime Minister of England, his year of leading England into the war, and his relationship with President FDR, trying to get America to join the war effort. And it is a big book, so it might be a little daunting to pick up if you're looking to read other things, but as big as this book is, it reads so quickly, and it is very interesting narrative nonfiction. So this one I think meets the prompt of time just because it is exploring history and it is giving us a snapshot of a specific period in history, a specific time. So highly recommend this one. And if you've read other things by Erik Larson and you're familiar with his writing, definitely pick this one up. If you're new to Erik Larson's writing, then also definitely pick this one up. Recently, I read Carrie by Toni Jensen. This is the memoir of a woman of Native American descent. She says her tribe is Métis, and I'm still not sure how that is pronounced. So forgive me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but I did want to share. It is Metis, and there is an accent over the E. So this is a Native American woman writing about her life and also incorporating the struggles of her people and the cycles of violence that perpetuate in her family but also in her community. And she also discusses word etymology and just how we think about words and the power that we give them, but also the power that these words then have over our lives. And this is such a profound read. I don't know how to describe this other than to say, if you haven't read this, read it. I thought that this was really striking as a record of one person's journey through life, but also as she reflects the journey of her people. Because we know Native American history in the United States is that they were expelled from a big part of their land and herded onto reservations, and after they were rounded up and sent to specific places, then they were said to be trespassing on land that was theirs. And so she talks about ownership of property and ownership of land. And so Carrie by Toni Jensen, of course, will meet the prompt of movement, and I highly recommend this one if you haven't already checked it out. This one is a gift from the publishers Penguin Random House, and so I'm using this as an opportunity to plug it right here and say, check this one out. It's a new release, and it also mentions current time. Like, there are points in this book where the author talks about the pandemic that we're living through right now. So this is a brand new release and very contemporary in its content, and I definitely want more eyes on this book. So check this one out to match the prompt of movement. Other books. Let the World See You, I think just from the title, would meet the prompt of discovery. This is a memoir of a man, and his name is Sam Acho, and he is an athlete with the NFL. He's a football player in the United States, but he's also a Christian, and so this is his memoir, him sharing experiences that he has lived through and how he's learned to incorporate his identity and reflect it in all of his encounters. Like how he got to be more comfortable with just who he was and allowing the world to really see him past the idea that you should present this fake facade to the world and you should try to present your better self. He says it's better to be genuine in all respects. And so he talks about resisting that temptation to be fake, how to be real in a world of fakes is the subtitle of this book. And it is a fantastic read. I gave this 5 stars when I read it. It's a fast read. And I'm thinking that this would meet the prompt of discovery just because, you know, you're learning how to be more of yourself by following the steps that this author talks about. So I think that this one is perfect for discovery. For discovery, if you're looking for a little bit more of nature writing, I'm going to recommend The Genius of Birds by Jennifer Ackerman. This is Jennifer Ackerman's attempt to debunk the myths that birds are small, bird-brained creatures and that they're not intelligent. And through the process of sharing a lot of characteristics of different birds, she totally won me over. I mean, I didn't think that birds were stupid to begin with, but in reading this book, it awakened a real appreciation for birds and for their mental prowess. And so I'm highly recommending this one for the prompt of discovery. Another book that I have that is nature focused is The Forest Unseen, A Year's Watch in Nature by David George Haskell. And I'm also going to share this one, even though I haven't read this one yet. Same author. This is The Song of Trees. And both of these are about nature and how we interact with nature and what we could learn from nature. So in this one, David George Haskell selects a patch of forest, and he goes every day for a year to observe what is happening in this part of the forest, and not just to write about his observations, but also to tell us the science behind these observations, because the author is a biologist. And this is fascinating to learn more about what we see, to learn more about the micro and the macro level of things that we could observe in nature if we were just observant enough. This is fantastic, and so I'm also looking forward to reading this one. But I'm recommending both of them. I got this recommendation from Doris from Aldi Books, and she has never steered me wrong. so far. So this one is on my TBR. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So for now, I am recommending this one to meet the prompt of discovery. I have this collection of statements entitled American Dreams, and this is a pictorial representation. It matches handwritten statements with the people who wrote them, and this is based on the theme of course, American dreams. How people, ordinary people in America, view the idea of the American dream, and sharing a little bit of their life in seeing their portraits. This also came from Penguin Random House, and the day it came, my husband opened it up and just proceeded to read through the whole book in one sitting. It is that engrossing. So I think that this is really good in discovering other people, especially now during the pandemic. We're not really being able to go out and socialize with a lot of people, and if you're looking to meet new people in a different way, not just virtual, meeting people away from a screen, here's another way to meet people on a page. American Dreams, and the author is Ian Brown, and this of course has portraits and stories, and it says portraits and stories of a country. Another book about movement, Drives of a Lifetime. This one was a gift from National Geographic Publishers. It is a compendium of road trips that you can take around the world. So if you're living in the United States and you don't like to fly, like there are members of my family who don't like to fly, and so they will get in a car and drive from one coast in the United States to the other. So this book is perfect for people like that, but also if you're looking to travel the world and see drives that you can take when you go to another country, this is also perfect for that. So it has amazing color photographs and descriptions of places and ideas of things that you can do on each trip to enhance the experience of that road trip. Now, I love a really good road trip, and so I am really looking forward to taking this book on the road, literally, when the world opens back up. So this one is discovery, but it's also movement, and might also be time. Also for time, I'm going to recommend Harold Anderson's One Person, No Vote, as we are just a few days away from one of the most important elections in our time in the United States. This book talks about how voter suppression is destroying our democracy, and as you're seeing a lot of people, maybe disenfranchised people, people who might not have voted in other circumstances, pushing themselves in this time to go out and vote, this I think is really appropriate and timely. So I'm recommending this one to meet the prompt of time as well. I also have this one, which is a little bit of a parenting memoir. This is by an author who is a mom of 3, and in this book she shares her tips on how to raise curious, adventurous, free children. So Let Them Be Kids by Jessica Smart. And in this one, she encompasses these ideas that she thinks that every parent should be incorporating in their parenting plan: adventure, boredom, innocence, and things like that. Success and failure. I thought that this was a fantastic book. I gave this 5 stars. This was a gift also from the publisher, and sometimes I don't always love all the books the publishers send me, but this one was really great. If you're a parent or a guardian, if you have children in your life and you want to help them get more out of life, get more out of their day-to-day activities, I recommend this one as a really great book. And so I think that this would also meet the prompt of time, because childhood is such a short window where you want to pack everything in and teach kids everything that you want them to learn. But it's also about discovery and allowing children to discover the world on their own, with your guidance, of course, as the adult in the room. But I think that this is a really great book, and so I'm recommending it to meet prompts of time and discovery as well. So I want to recommend Say It Louder by Tiffany D. Cross. This one is about black voters, white narratives, and saving our democracy. That's the subtitle here, but I think Tiffany D. Cross's book encompasses even more of that. She talks about race relations in the United States and just how powerful media is in broadcasting messages to people, not just the messages that we see and hear, but also the subliminal messages. And she talks about the imminent danger of not having representation in all aspects of media. So Tiffany D. Cross is a media presenter. She is a political analyst, an on-air political analyst. She talks about her experience in media and the racism that she faced, but also the racial messages that are projected by media, especially if we don't have people who are woke in positions of leadership and decision making. So I think that this is a fantastic read, but not necessarily limited to what the subtitle says. But of course, as we are in election season and we're thinking about how political messages are presented on air, I think this is a really great read for this time. Say It Louder by Tiffany D. Cross, then I think would meet the prompt of time, just because it is such a timely discussion point. But just a fantastic read whenever. So those are some recommendations, and I didn't talk too much about the buzz prompt, and that's because I don't necessarily have any books right here, right now, in physical format that I think meet the prompt. But I do want to mention a few more books that I have read recently and really enjoyed, but I don't have physical copies of them. And so those are 5 books that I read in September to judge the BookTube prize. I think that all 5 of these books, even though I had to rank them and distinguish between which ones I loved more, I think that any of these are really good recommendations. I'm going to share them with you as well. Know My Name by Chanel Miller, I think, was a fantastic memoir about sexual violence and how it is experienced by female victims in the United States specifically, and also how we prosecute rape in this country. So it was a fantastic read, and it went on to win the BookTube prize. So I highly recommend it, not just as the BookTube prize winner, but because it garnered a lot of votes. So a lot of people also thought that this was a fantastic read. Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow also talks about sexual violence in the United States, but Ronan Farrow is a journalist, and he was the person investigating Harvey Weinstein and responsible for really getting focus back on Harvey Weinstein and eventually having Harvey Weinstein prosecuted for sexual crimes. But it's also a little bit more about how media and how our society constructs these frameworks to protect sexual predators and allow them to continue, to give them power over victims by silencing and paying off and enforcing non-disclosure agreements and things like that. So because this is such a pressing topic, I think that this might meet the prompt of buzz, because there was a lot of buzz in the media about this topic when it finally came out, but it took a long time for the efforts to suppress the story to be overcome. So I'm going to recommend Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow to meet the category of buzz. Other titles that I really enjoyed: No Visible Bruises by Rachel Louise Snyder, which was exploration of domestic violence and how it is experienced by victims, by aggressors, and how people who are in legislative power are trying to change the laws that would offer more protection and offer more services to victims. I thought this was a fantastic book as well, and so I'm going to highly recommend that, maybe to meet the prompt of discovery. Hopefully you don't know anything personally about domestic violence, and this is a good way to learn about how other people are experiencing this and maybe how to be more empathetic in situations. And finally, I wanted to recommend Solitaire by Albert Woodfox. Woodfox was kept in solitary confinement in prison for several decades, and it took a really long time and a lot of people trying to fight for his release for him to finally be released. And I think more people should just read the story and understand how even when people are incarcerated, it doesn't mean that they deserve to be in jail forever. It doesn't mean that everything that happens to them are things that they deserve. I think that this is a fantastic read for everyone. And then finally, I wanted to talk about a book that I read earlier in the year, but which I think more people should be talking about. It's gotten a lot of press in the last few months, but I think that even more people should read it, and that is How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. I don't have a physical copy of the book, but I do have a copy of the workbook that accompanies that book. And so this is a guided journal of going through the book of How to Be Anti-Racist and writing down your thoughts as you become more aware. Ibram X. Kendi is this guy. And How to Be Anti-Racist is him framing his own life experiences as he learns about racist attitudes and racist thoughts, and how he has been projecting some of those attitudes and thoughts even as a black man in the United States. And he talks about how the system continues to persist to discriminate against people of African descent. And if you're interested in learning more about that book and applying those lessons to your own life, then I'm also recommending this. This journal was a gift from the publisher, Penguin Random House. Because anti-racism is a buzzword right now, it is a topic in the news. You know, we're still in that period of time where there's been a lot of protests, people trying to get the word out that Black Lives Matter. And so How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi would be one of my recommendations for Buzz. So that's a pretty long video, and I didn't get to my TBR, so we're probably going to have to make a part 2 to this video. I have a lot of nonfiction titles to share. So thank you so much for watching this video. Come back soon. I'm going to film another one where I talk a little bit more about my nonfiction November TBR and maybe some other nonfiction titles that I'm recommending to you. But thank you so much for watching this one. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let's talk in the comments. Let me know what's on your TBR. If you made a video, whether with your TBR or your recommendations, link it down below so I can go check it out. I don't have a lot of time to watch videos these days, and so I haven't been checking out all the channels that I used to, but if you send me a link, I'll definitely click on it. So thank you so much, and until next time, happy reading. Bye.